I made millions in sales by unlearning everything I was taught about money. See, the rules that you were raised on weren't really built to make you rich. They were created to keep us all obedient, which ends up making us stuck. And when the money came into my life, the book Think and Grow Rich says that when riches come, they come so fast and so furious, you wonder where they were hiding all those lean years. And that's what I experienced. So let me show you how to think into millions. And when you can think in millions, you can create millions. And this is why most salespeople never do. See, most people in sales don't realize that they were trained to think small long before they ever picked up the phone or made their first call or their first deal. From the time we were young, you and I were probably introduced to money in fragments. I remember when I first started, when I was just a young boy, I would get a nickel or a dime. I would go down to Aljo Pharmacy so I could buy some candy. So my thinking at that time was in nickels and dimes. And then from there, when I got a little bit older, I was thinking in terms of quarters or half dollars, maybe dollars. Then I started to shovel snow and I would make $5. And so my goal was to go out and make $5 or $10. And slowly over time, I started to think about 20s and how can I make 50? How can I make $100? And then how can I make $1,000? Most of us have this fragmented thinking and it follows us into adulthood, into our careers, and into our client conversations. By the time we get into sales, we're already thinking in terms of earning, money to be chasing commissions, rather than thinking in terms of ownership, in terms of thinking of building capital and creating real wealth for us. We're still in the mindset that if I perform, I get a commission. And what I'm ending up doing is I'm just trading dollars for hours. See, the goals get a little bit bigger, but the mindset stays the same. Earn just enough to cover my lifestyle. Maybe I can stretch to make a bonus. Maybe I can qualify to get me into a better bracket. But those are small goals. But even the big targets, maybe a six-figure income or a $500,000 take home, they're often rooted in debt thinking, not in wealth creation. Like if I can make $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 bonus, then I can qualify to move into a $500,000 house. But I don't really own the house, do I? I'm taking on the debt. So my thinking is stuck at how can I make an extra $20,000 or $50,000 so I can afford more debt, not wealth creation. And without realizing it, we're thinking in terms of what we can qualify for, that larger number. And it's almost always connected to how much debt can I have? But the money really isn't ours. And if you've been in sales for years and you're still thinking in thousands or tens of thousands, it's not the skill. It's not the skill. It's not just skill set that has to change. What has to change is your mindset about money. In our very first syllabus in our sales course, it's all about the mindset of money and understanding your relationship with money, because you do have a relationship with money. I had a relationship with money, and I can tell you what, in the first half part of my life, me and money didn't get along. Money wanted nothing to do with Paul. See, thinking in millions isn't just about setting bigger or larger goals. If you think about it, it's about operating at a different frequency altogether. Now, when I say frequency, what I mean is a level of awareness in your thinking, in your own self-concept, like what you see in the world around you and what you expect from yourself. Money is just a frequency. It's a frequency of thought. Think of it like a radio station. Maybe you're listening to 97.9 and you tune into 97.9. But if you're at 97.7, what do you hear? You hear static. You don't get that clear message. And for most of us, we're dialed into making $100,000. And we think that that's a lot of money. But that's a lot of money compared to what? Maybe it's compared, to what you used to make, which might have been $50,000. So, $100,000 sounds like a lot. But, there's a higher frequency than $100,000. And when you start to tap into that with your mind, with your self-belief, when you start to see yourself as a person who not only deserves to earn more, but understands that my value is more, not just in exchange for my time, but for my value, I've trained myself to live in the frequency of millions. So I get all kinds of opportunities that come. People want to work with me, people want to do a partnership, people want me to invest. And whenever I evaluate a new idea, a new opportunity, my very first question is if I put time and energy into this, am I going to make $1,000,000? See, what I've learned is it takes no more energy for me to think into how to make $1,000,000 than it does for me to make 100,000 or 10,000. Think of it this way. Think about where you live right now. And now what I'd like you to do is think of New York City. Just think of New York City. What comes to your mind? Big buildings, Central Park, Statue of Liberty, Broadway, maybe good food. Now I want you to think of Shanghai, China. What comes to your mind? Maybe the beautiful river, the beautiful skyline, the different culture. Now think of the Bahamas. What comes to your mind? Sandy white beaches, beautiful water, casinos, the Caribbean lifestyle. But notice, it doesn't take you any more energy to think of New York or Shanghai or the Bahamas or anywhere else in the world. It doesn't take you any more energy. And so it doesn't take you any more energy to think into how can I make $1,000,000 than it does to how can I make $100,000. It's just a different frequency of thought. It's a different level of awareness. So that one question that I ask myself, can I make $1,000,000, doesn't just shape the decisions I make. You know what else it does? Is it filters out all the distractions. It filters out all the wrong clients. It filters out the time-wasting strategies that distract me from the bigger wins. Because see, when you start thinking about $1,000,000, that frequency of $1,000,000 doesn't just represent the money. You know what else is at that frequency? All the people, the ideas, the opportunities. It's like when you tune into 97.9 on the radio. You don't just hear the music, you hear the programming. You hear the weather report, you hear the traffic report, you hear the commercials. You tune into everything that's on that frequency. And when you raise your frequency, when you raise your frequency of thought and belief into millions, you start to tune into everything that's at that frequency, not just the money, but the growth, the opportunities, the people, the habits. That's the power of really shifting. And what most people don't realize is, again, it takes no more energy to think in millions than it does in thousands. But you know what it does take? It takes a different perspective. It takes a different level of belief. See, in sales, your perspective is everything. Like how you see yourself, how you see your prospect, your money, your offer, and the sales opportunity itself in front of you. And the second you shift your perspective, the kinds of clients, conversations, and contacts, you begin to attract those things. They'll shift too. It's our perception. Wayne Dyer used to say that when we change the way we look at things, the things we look at change. Now that sounds like a good quote, maybe great for a magnet on the refrigerator, but what does it really mean? Science has proven, quantum physics has proven, that you are so powerfully creative that just by you observing something, just by you looking at something, just by your visual intent when you look at something, it changes what you look at. If you don't believe me, just Google Japanese ice crystal study. That's all you need to do. And you'll find that in the study, they took 2 sets of water, same water, and in one, they had observers look at and think of positive intent, positive ideas, love, abundance, peace, harmony as they looked at the water. The other one, they thought of negative energy, hate, destruction, envy, jealousy. When they freeze the water and they look at the crystals that are made as the water freezes, over here the crystals are beautifully connected. They're beautiful. Over here, they're all broken. The crystals are cloudy. The ice looks cloudy. Here it's crystal clear. Why? Because you are so powerfully created that just your intent, just your ability to observe changes. So when you change the way you look at something, the thing you look at changes. And when you change the way you look at you change. When you change the way you look at your potential, when you change the way you look at your value, your belief in yourself begins to change. I moved into a neighborhood where, for the first time, I was the poorest guy on my street. I live in a very wealthy neighborhood, and that was exactly where I needed to be. I often say, if you're the wealthiest person in your group, you need a new group. If you're the smartest person in your group, you need a new group. At the end of my street, my friend Marla lives there. This is her winter home. I live in South Florida. The rest of the year, Marla lives in Montana. And let me just say, like, Marla doesn't just like live in the mountains of Montana. She owns a mountain in Montana. And every December, she hosts big parties where people come and they look at this beautiful home she's built. They notice that she has one of the evergreens that they cut off of the property is her Christmas tree. It's 35 feet tall in her house. That's how big her house is. In November, she hires 25 people to decorate the home. It takes her an entire month to decorate the home and the other homes that she's built on the property. The ornaments on the tree are like the size of beach balls. And one day, I just kind of casually mentioned to Marla that, I'm into the stock market and I know that she invests as well. And I was just asking her about, the different investments she's made. And I was talking to her about a stock that I invested in that had performed well in the market. And she came back a week later and she said that her team had purchased 3 million shares of that company. At that time, I was talking to her about the stock NVIDIA, the chip maker. At that time, NVIDIA was trading at $150 a share. Her team bought her 3 million shares. See, that's the level that she plays at because that's the frequency that she's tuned to. Her and her husband started the Home Shopping Network. See, that's what happens when you live at the frequency of millions. The conversations are different. The decisions are bigger. The scale that you operate and reflects the scale that you think at. The scale that you operate at reflects the scale that you think at. Results don't lie. If you want to know what you're programmed to believe about your value, about what you're really worth, look at your last tax return. See, I think for most people, if they would look at their last year's tax return and see how much money they made, they would realize that they have much more potential than that number would reflect. They know that they're worth more than that. But knowing that you're worth more and believing you are is completely different. So again, think of it like a radio station, a TV station. You tune to Channel 4. Again, you don't just see the show that you're watching. You get all the programming, the news, the ads, the commentary. It's the same with money. When you tune to the frequency of millions, you don't just get the deal. You get the ideas. You get the people, the timing, the resources that are all at that frequency. Now look, before you go any further in this video, I want you to grab the free guide that I created for you. It's called the Money Mindset Reset. And what this will do will help you expand everything that I've just taught, including how to shift your thinking out of tens and maybe hundreds, from hundreds of thousands of dollars into millions of dollars. This guide will help you diagnose where you are, your current money frequency. It'll help you understand your programming and where it came from. And most importantly, it'll get you to start thinking in terms of value, not effort. Whether you're just starting your shift or you're really building towards your next score, this is going to help you clear the internal blocks, just your own limiting beliefs that slow most people down. The link is right there below. It's right in the description. So go download the Money Mindset Reset now. And let's just keep building on this. See, as you elevate your thinking, your business model has to follow, because you can't operate at $1 million frequency on a $100,000 engine. You just can't. What I help people do is I help people think in terms of a score, a very clear, leveraged opportunity that pulls you out of small thinking and into real value creation, real wealth creation. Most people stay stuck because their current role, their current offer, their current strategy doesn't have a path to millions. And deep down, they know it. I mean, just look at what you're doing right now. Look at what you're offering right now. Look at what you're selling. Look at how you're selling it. Look at how much money you're making and ask yourself, what's your path to make $1 million a year? Do you have one? If you don't, you've got to change the game. See, I've had seasons where I stayed sharp, I stayed visible, I stayed in motion. But what I was doing was I was looking and waiting for my next score, because I knew that's where my big leap was going to happen. So when I sold my first company, it was a commercial cleaning company. I had a score. I partnered with Bob Proctor. Bob Proctor was featured in the movie The Secret. I bought into Bob's company. 90 days later, he got filmed to be in The Secret. Within 6 months, Bob's business grew tenfold. I was with Bob for probably 4 years. After I left the partnership, I started consulting and coaching, but I was always looking for the next score, and it came. I partnered with a guy by the name of Les Brown. Les Brown's probably the top speaker in the world. And I created a program called Empowerment Mentoring with Les Brown. And Les and I did that for a number of years. And then when that partnership ended, I started consulting and coaching and mentoring, kind of in a holding pattern, making money while I was doing it, but I wasn't staying there. Yeah, I was making a couple $100,000, but I was thinking in millions. What's my next score? And I leveraged an opportunity. I leveraged a relationship I had, and I got an introduction to a guy by the name of John Maxwell. John's probably the #1 leadership guru. That led me to a partnership with John. I was partners with John for 10 years, from 2010 to 2020, before I sold the company back to John. So for those 10 years, I built a company, the largest training company in the world, called the John Maxwell Team. In those 10 years, in my company and the companies that John owned, we generated $562 million. That's more than $500 million. See, scores don't appear by accident. They appear because you've trained yourself to seek them out and to see them, to recognize them. And then you've positioned yourself to act. In other words, you were ready. Success is when preparation and opportunity meet. That's when success happens, is when your preparation and the opportunity meet. I'm going to suggest you watching this video right now and you developing your skill set, you getting prepared for the big opportunity now, is going to pay off for you big time in the future. See, when you're in sales, a score could be a new partnership. It could be a licensed offer, a strategic collaboration, anything that what I call compresses time and multiplies your return. If your current business and the opportunity you're in hasn't pushed you to think into millions yet, it's probably not the business that will. Every person I've ever met who's made millions started by asking one different question. And it was this: what do I know? Like, what knowledge, what skill, what talent, what resource do I have that's worth $1,000 to somebody else? See, if you can sit down with another person and you can spend a couple of hours with them and you can deliver clarity or strategy and insight that creates, I don't know, $2,000 or $3,000 worth of value with them, you've got something worth selling. And once you have something worth selling at that level, the only question left is can I find 1,000 people over the next year, maybe the next 2 years, who need what I have? See, think about it. Do you have a skill, a talent, or a resource that people want to know or learn or have applied in their life that would give them in their life at least $1,000 worth of return? Probably a $2,000, $3,000 worth of return. See, I believe I believe my sales program is worth tens of thousands of dollars to somebody, even more. For some people, it's been worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. And we sell it for, I don't know, maybe $1,000, a couple $1,000. People gladly pay us that. And so can I find something of value for 1,000 and find 1,000 people who want it or need it? Because if I can, 1,000 and 1,000 is 1,000,000. This isn't fantasy thinking. It's simple math. Can I find 500 people that would see $2,000 worth of value in what I'm selling? 1,000 people at $1,000. See, in sales, you already know how to build those relationships at scale. The difference is now you're not selling someone else's offer. You're leveraging what you know, what you've lived, what's been proven in your life. And once you sell one offer at $1,000 or more, I guarantee you, your entire mindset changes because now you're playing the game on a completely different board and you own the board. See, many years ago, I set a goal to earn $2.2 million in a single year. Now, I knew that number would really stretch me. So I started writing that number down every day. I started to look for it on signs, on license plates, invoices, anything. I even bought a plant in my office and I named the plant 2.2. I did that so I could keep my frequency tuned. And you know what? After a while, that number stopped feeling big to me. All of a sudden, I was no longer intimidated by $2.2 million. It started to feel normal. And then it started to feel natural. And that's the moment I knew I could actually earn that. It went from a theory to a fantasy to a fact. See, if you've ever sold anything to anyone, you already have the skill. Now it's time to think at the level where that skill compounds. See, thinking into millions isn't about affording more. It's about owning your value and building something that can actually fund the future you really want in your life. See, most people claim that they want more and they settle for far less than they're worth. Too many people in sales spend their entire career asking, how can I afford this car? How can I afford this house? How can I afford these clothes? Instead of asking, what can I do to build a money machine that creates the wealth for me to have it? Most people, again, they say they want to earn millions, but they don't. What they really want is the debt to afford $1 million lifestyle. They're tuned to the image of success, the house, the car, but not the actual frequency of ownership, the frequency of creation. And see, and until they can rewire that in their mind, in their belief system, you know what they do? They keep attracting debt dressed up as wealth. In the economy, in the marketplace, it's known as house poor. There's a lot of really quote unquote successful rich people who are house poor, meaning they earn just enough money to manage the debt to have a lifestyle of somebody who's really wealthy. But they don't have the wealth. The moment you start thinking like an owner, like a wealth creator, everything changes. Not just your results, but your entire life, the direction you're going. And you start attracting people who think the same way. I'm going to suggest that if you're watching this video, that's not an accident. It's not an accident that you have a desire to be or do or have more, and you popped on my YouTube channel. I've never met you. You don't know me. I don't know you. And even if I know you, I don't know if you're watching this. I'm just trusting that people will. And here you are. You've attracted into your life the very best person you could ever have speak belief into your life. You attracted into your life the number one coach in the world. You attracted into your life the number one entrepreneur of the year. I've got the award to prove it. I'm not saying that. I've been given the awards. Guru.com has named me number one coach of the year multiple times. See, you start attracting people and opportunities at that same level. That's why money begins to come so fast, because you're now tuned to that channel where those kinds of opportunities, they've always been there. You've just never seen them. The opportunity that you have right now has always been there. You just tuned to it and now you have it. I'm suggesting to you that there's more. The difference is, right now, you're in harmony with what you believe. And that's what turns short-term sales into long-term equity. When you start to think beyond what you currently believe, when you stretch your belief. The win isn't just hitting the $1 million. That was a big win for me when I made $2.2 million. Believe me, it was awesome. But you know what was better? Was becoming the person who expects to live at that level every single day of my life. Most people never shift their financial frequency. They dream of wealth, they hope for freedom, but they think in pennies. They work in transactions, trading time for money, and they live in fear of the very thing they say they want. But you can choose differently. See, I've seen what happens when people don't have options. Years ago, I visited Guatemala and I watched families bring their children to a landfill, not to throw trash away, but to dig for their food through the pile of trash. It was one of the saddest things I've ever seen. I had never seen poverty at that level. And that moment marked me. And I realized something. The world needs me rich. The world needs me rich, and the world needs you rich. See, the truth is when you reach that level of wealth, you can be so much more useful. You can lead, you can give, you can change things. You can make a difference. You can stop asking what's realistic. You can see poverty. You can see something that strikes your heart, and you can say, I want to affect change, and you can. You can stop reliving limitations, and you can start thinking in millions, not because money is the only goal, because it's the doorway to becoming the kind of person who can create at that level, who can change the world. Now look, if something clicked for you today, if even just one sentence, don't let it fade. Don't just kind of nod your head and say, geez, that's motivational. This is not an attempt to motivate you, because the way you think about money is either accelerating your life or it's holding everything back. That's why I want you to go and I want you to download the Money Mindset Reset right now. It's free and it's not fluff. This is a tool that I created to help you. I want to help you uncover the exact frequency that you're operating at. Spot the beliefs that are probably sabotaging your ability to receive your true value and shift your financial identity. I want you to go from earner to owner, from debt to value, from scarcity to score. If you're really serious about building a life of wealth and freedom, this is your next step. Don't stop there. I want you to watch my next video. It's titled 40 Brutal Truths That I Wish I Knew in My 20s. I'm going to tell you what, that episode will hit you square, right between your eyes, right where you need to hear it. And if you're ready to build the future you really want, that you're worth, you're going to need every one of those truths. So download the guide, watch the next video. I'll see you on the inside.